Iowa City, they're on fire right now. They picked up a big win over the Wisconsin Herd last night. The Cleveland Charge back in action on Friday against the Long Island Nets. They are 2-1 in the second half of their G League season. So go on, head over to Public Hall. It is affordable, family fun for everyone. You can get your tickets at clevelandcharge.com. They are back in action on Friday. And with that,
Shedeur Sanders is getting high-level looks. I mean, they are giving this man exotic looks. They shifting coverage post-snap. They bringing people, dropping people. He's getting the whole kitchen sink, bro. He's not getting no one-read stuff. I'm surprised by that. You ain't even fool him on that play. Can you imagine? Some of this stuff you're not going to get unless you just see it. It ain't no such thing that you get in the defense. And it's like, oh, he's just supposed to be good. Bro, some of this stuff you got to see. You got to have experience. You gotta have a database of experiences that you can pull from. Some looks you never gonna see by the second year. And by the time you get some stuff and you're throwing the receivers in the offseason and you're getting used to working with your offensive line and you're starting to understand the chemistry, now you're starting to put together a Rolodex so you can start to understand what they're doing, and now you can make them pay. But if you ain't got the Rolodex, plus you ain't got the roster, you're not gonna succeed at the highest level. I'm tired of people trying to boil down the NFL like it's
Brian Hoyer just pulled up on Cleveland Browns Daily and flat out tormented Kevin Stefanski for allegedly selling a false story about Shedeur Sanders' development. And listen, when a 15-year NFL vet who's lived inside that locker room calls you out on live TV, that's when you know the mask is slipping. You know what's wild? Everybody's focused on Hoyer flaming Stefanski over his quarterback decisions, but they're completely overlooking the real headline. Dillon Gabriel has basically disappeared off the map ever since his girlfriend went off script on TikTok about the Browns organization. I mean, gone, like witness protection energy, bruh. Meanwhile, Shedeur is lighting it up, soaking in all the attention, and out of nowhere, Dillon pops up on the injury report. And now here comes Brian Hoyer, a dude who never publicly drags coaches, going full scorched earth on Stefanski's handling of that QB room. Hold up, because when you hear what Hoyer exposed about those so-called
guys in charge of how you can get this thing turned around.
And Brian, to your point, like if the Browns called the Bills right now and said, we'll give you 5 first-round picks for Josh Allen, the Bills would laugh at them. You could offer them 10 first-round picks, they'd turn it down. Whereas if you said, like you could get any coach with 2 first-round picks if you wanted, like in theory, if the coach were willing to go.
Look, Brian Hoyer isn't the type to just talk recklessly. This is a guy who spent over a decade as a backup quarterback, someone who understands the politics and power games inside an NFL locker room better than most starters ever will. So when he goes on Cleveland Browns Daily and says Kevin wasn't being straight about Shedeur's readiness, that's not a hot take. That's first-hand knowledge being aired out. Here's what Hoyer basically pulled the curtain back on. While Stefanski was telling the media that Shedeur needed more seasoning, that the NFL game was moving too fast for him, behind closed doors, Shedeur was cooking the first-team defense in practice. I'm talking about completing close to 80% of his throws, making reads that seasoned vets struggle with, and running the huddle like he'd been in the league for years. But Stefanski kept riding with Dillon Gabriel, his guy, the quarterback he personally stamped during the draft process. And this is where things get really uncomfortable. Remember when Shedeur Sanders got drafted by the Browns? Third string, bro. They buried him on the depth chart like he was an undrafted camp body fighting for a practice squad slot. And who was sitting comfortably ahead of him? Dillon Gabriel, Kevin Stefanski's chosen one. Now here's where it gets spicy, and these lines up exactly with what Hoyer was hinting at. When Shedeur was stuck as the backup, when he was parked at third string, the media coverage was non-stop. Reporters were on him every single day. Shedeur, how do you feel about being third string? Shedeur, what's your mindset? Shedeur, do you think you can win the starting job? The cameras couldn't leave this kid alone, even when he supposedly wasn't part of the plan. You know why? Because everybody in that building already knew. The players knew. The assistants knew. And if you listen closely to Hoyer, even Stefanski knew. Shedeur was the best quarterback on that roster from day one. But politics, ego, and doubling down on a bad decision kept him glued to the bench. Let me really set the scene for what was happening inside those Browns facilities. Hoyer talked about watching a practice tape where Shedeur would come in with the second unit, throwing to weaker receivers behind a worse offensive line, and still clearly outplaying Dillon Gabriel. And there was one practice Hoyer alluded to without saying names, but let's be real, we all know who he meant, where Shedeur threw 5 touchdown passes.
In an organization that just doesn't matter who's there. It's Jay, I think you said it, like the boss is still the Haslam family. Like, how are they going to get out of the way and hire someone to let them do their job?
Yeah, that's basically what it comes down to. And to your point about Mike being alpha, and listen, I get the argument about the importance of the quarterback, but the reason why I would, if you're talking all-time great coach, all-time great quarterback, a coach has a shelf life longer than a player, number one. But number two, it's to what Brian was talking about. Mike is the
And after that practice, what does Stefanski do? He steps up to the microphones and says Dillon Gabriel gives them the best chance to win. Bro, even the players were side-eyeing each other like, is this dude serious right now? But fast forward to the present moment. Dillon Gabriel has been completely silent for weeks. I'm not being dramatic, bro. This man has gone full blackout mode. And before you jump in with, well, he's injured, yeah, they're saying his name is on the injury report, but fold up. How does a backup quarterback who's barely touching the field suddenly get hurt? What exactly happened? Did he trip over a Gatorade cooler on the sideline? Did he tweak something during warm-ups? Nobody is explaining this injury, and that's exactly why it smells funny. The last real update we got about Dillon Gabriel was when his girlfriend hopped on TikTok and aired out the Browns organization. She basically said, and I'm paraphrasing, but the message was loud, that the Browns were playing favorites and her man wasn't getting a fair opportunity, which is crazy because Dillon was literally the starter. He was the favorite. But here's the part nobody wants to talk about, and this is what I think finally pushed Brian Hoyer to speak. After that TikTok clip blew up, there were emergency meetings inside the Browns facility. Jimmy Haslam himself allegedly summoned Stefanski into his office, and this is where the forced benching conversation starts to make sense. Sit with how wild that is for a second. We're talking about Kevin Stefanski's guy, the quarterback he personally vouched for, the one he trusted so much he ranked him ahead of Shedeur Sanders on the depth chart. And now Stefanski won't even mention his name. That's insane, bro. Your head coach won't defend his own guy, won't even address what's happening. Brian Hoyer basically confirmed what a lot of people already suspected, that Stefanski knew he made the wrong call but didn't have the humility to own it. Hoyer said, and this is almost word for word, sometimes coaches get so invested in being right about their evaluation that they'll tank an entire season instead of admitting they were wrong. Tank an entire season. Let that really sink in. A 15-year NFL veteran is essentially saying Kevin Stefanski was willing to lose games, wreck the locker room, and waste a year of everyone's career just to avoid admitting he was wrong about Dillon Gabriel. Meanwhile, Shedeur is out here looking like he belongs on an NFL field. And here's what makes this even crazier. We're not just seeing solid quarterback play from Shedeur. We're seeing leadership. We're seeing a guy commanding the huddle, making grown man throws, and
Bro, dog. You like come on, if you gonna be sabotaging, make it look a little more real. Don't make it so obvious. Don't make it so obvious. Look at this, man. And this is on 4th down. This is on 4th down. You can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious. This is what we are talking about. This is exactly the stuff that we are talking.
But here's where the Cleveland media steps in and completely muddies the water. And I'm talking very specifically about Mary Kay Cabot. Now look, I don't usually come at media people like this, but once you hear the gymnastics she's been doing to shield Stefanski, you'll understand why fans are fed up with her coverage. Mary Kay went on the Ultimate Cleveland Browns show, and yes, Brian Hoyer called this out too, and she basically tried to twist this entire situation into something that lets Kevin Stefanski off the hook. She's out here acting like Stefanski never got a fair chance because he didn't have a quarterback. Wait, what? He's the one who picked Dillon Gabriel over Shedeur. He's the one who refused to give Shedeur first-team reps in training camp. Hoyer's response to that narrative was straight up iconic. He basically said he's been in quarterback rooms with Tom Brady, with Cam Newton, with some of the greatest to ever do it. And when you have talent like Shedeur Sanders, you don't stash him on third string. You don't play games with the depth chart. You put your best players on the field, period. And this is the part that drives me crazy about Cleveland media sometimes. They get so busy protecting certain people that they stop telling the truth and stop calling it exactly how it is. Even Hoyer hinted that some media members, he didn't say Mary Kay by name, but come on, have relationships with coaches that cloud their objectivity. She even claims Stefanski never had enough time with a quarterback he could win with. Are you serious? He drafted Dillon Gabriel over Shedeur. He's the same coach who refused to give Shedeur first-team reps in camp. You don't get to draft a quarterback, choose him over a more talented option, refuse to develop that more talented option, and then complain about poor quarterback play. That's not how this works. Here's what actually happened, and this is where Hoyer's comments connect all the dots. Jimmy Haslam is not a patient owner. He wants results now. And when he sees Shedeur Sanders stuck on the bench while Dillon Gabriel struggles and Kevin Stefanski keeps rolling out excuses, trust me, those phones start ringing. Hoyer basically confirmed there were ownership-level interventions, his words, not mine, surrounding the quarterback situation. And he said he's never seen anything like it in his career, where an owner had to step in and practically force a coach to play the clearly better quarterback. And then Dillon's girlfriend drops that TikTok, and suddenly Dillon disappears. Come on, man. You can't tell me there wasn't a closed-door conversation where someone in that front office said, we need to get ahead of this before it blows up. So what's the move? They quietly bury Dillon on the depth chart. They slide his name onto the injury report and make sure he's nowhere near a microphone. Meanwhile, Shedeur is getting all the reps, all the shine, all the real opportunities. And guess what? He's capitalizing on every single one. That Pittsburgh game, the same one Mary Kay tried to spin as the team rallying for Stefanski? Nah, that was Shedeur putting on a show. That was Shedeur proving he should have been QB1 from the jump. Let me zoom in on that Pittsburgh game for a second, because Brian Hoyer broke it down perfectly. The Steelers have one of the nastiest defenses in the entire league. TJ Watt, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Cam Hayward, those are real-deal stars on that side of the ball. And Shedeur walked into that hostile environment with zero hesitation. He was dropping dimes into tight windows. He was extending plays with his legs. He was checking every box you want checked from a franchise quarterback. Hoyer said watching that film felt like sitting through a masterclass. He specifically pointed out a 3rd and long where Shedeur stood tall in the pocket with Watt screaming off the edge, kept his eyes downfield, and delivered a perfect strike for the first down. That's not rookie behavior. That's franchise quarterback energy. But here's where I'll pause for a second and defend Dillon, because even Hoyer touched on this. Was Dillon Gabriel really given a fair shot, or was he set up to fail by a coaching staff that never fully committed to developing him the right way?
This is in, people. Come on, man. Look at this. Look at this nonsense, man. Look at this dude right here. Look, they circled him. They circled him. Look at him. Just look at him.
Right here, it's going to be a war.
All right, come on, you in position. Are you serious, dog? You serious? You serious? Come on, man.
It's the outside arm, pushes him.
Come on, man. You can't be serious, man. Y'all can't be.
See, this is the part about the NFL that really gets under my skin. They draft these young quarterbacks, throw them into completely broken situations, and then act shocked when things don't magically work. Dillon Gabriel is talented. We saw that in college. But when you're stuck behind an offensive line that can't block, throw into receivers who can't separate, and your own coaching staff is already side-eyeing another quarterback on the roster, how exactly are you supposed to win? Now, don't twist my words. I'm not saying Dillon Gabriel is better than Shedeur Sanders. That would be insane. Shedeur is clearly the more gifted quarterback and the more NFL-ready talent. But the way the Browns handled this entire situation was sloppy from top to bottom. And Brian Hoyer's final comments were the real gut punch. He said, "In all my years in the NFL, I've never seen a coach actively work against his own team's success just to protect his ego." And that's exactly what happened in Cleveland. Actively working against your own team. A 15-year veteran, a guy who's been in more locker rooms than most people in this league, is straight up saying Kevin Stefanski sabotaged his own squad rather than admit he was wrong about the quarterback position. And look, I know Shedeur has haters. People saying he's only here because of his dad, people calling him hype. But when Brian Hoyer, a guy with zero ties to Deion Sanders and no reason to gas Shedeur up, says this kid is special, that carries weight. The truth is, Shedeur Sanders has been proving people wrong his entire life. Being drafted as a third stringer by the Browns was disrespectful, period. But he didn't cry about it. He worked. And now he's got the starting job, the locker room's respect, and former players like Hoyer publicly backing him. So what happens next? Stefanski's job is hanging by a thread. Dylan Gabriel is basically finished in Cleveland. And Shedeur Sanders, he's just getting started. This is his team now, and everybody knows it. The Browns finally found their franchise quarterback, but they almost fumbled it because of one coach's ego. Thank God Brian Hoyer dared to say it out loud, because at the end of the day, the truth always comes out. Hoyer just sped that process up by exposing what really went down in Cleveland. Shedeur Sanders is him, and even the haters are starting to realize it. And if you're riding with Shedeur like I am, smash that subscribe button and let's watch this young king take over the league. The best is